Welcome back to On the Move with Victor Shi. This is Victor Shi. It is Monday, June 5th, and this week, both Chris Christie and Mike Pence are expected to launch their presidential bid in the 2024 Republican primary election. In case you don't remember, Chris Christie received about 8% of the vote in New Hampshire in 2016. He came in sixth out of 8 people. Mike Pence is also disliked by both Trump supporters and moderate Republicans. And then on top of all of that and everyone else who's running, it seems really like no one stands a chance against Trump in the primary. Latest polls have Trump at about 50% or the mid 50s, which, get this, is higher than every candidate below him combined. So this very much is then, I guess, Trump's game to lose. But even with that, how should we view the Republican field? How should Democrats approach 2024? And what is the winning message and strategy for Democrats going into the 2024 election? And today I will be joined by someone who I know all of you know and is my good friend, DNC Chair Jamie Harrison. He's going to join us shortly. But in the meantime, I want to get into some news that we got right before the show started, which is that Trump's lawyers are seen entering the Department of Justice, which, for anyone who kind of is in law, who has followed these cases closely, or who has kind of followed kind of what happens in the legal system, it seems like, at least right now, all signs are leading to some sort of indictment, because they don't do this unless they kind of fear, or unless they expect some sort of indictment to drop. And Glenn Kirshner, I think, had a great tweet this morning kind of reacting to this news, which is basically that, if they didn't think Jack Smith would charge, and they wouldn't be doing this. So basically, we could be on indictment watch right now. I know for a lot of people, they're anxious about what might happen, and for all of us, I know accountability matters a lot in terms of holding our former presidents accountable. But I think this is some good news that we can all use this morning, and this is kind of the clearest sign yet that things are changing. But Glenn Kirshner tweeted, "Good sign. If Jack Smith had decided against charging Trump, there will be no need for this meeting. The last federal prosecutors often do before indicting is meet with the target's defense team and give them an opportunity to present any evidence or arguments they want to offer." So that is Glenn Kirshner's expert take, and we will all see what happens in the days to come. But I'll update you all. But I know this is some long-awaited news, especially with the special counsel. I know a lot of people have been saying, the Department of Justice is too slow, but right now it seems like things are really ramping up. And Jack Smith, I think, knows exactly what he's doing in this case. Also, this relates to the topic that we're going to talk about today, but I want to get into Nikki Haley's town hall with CNN yesterday, because it was one of those moments where you kind of just watch Nikki Haley, and there's just so much kind of extreme MAGA positions that she took yesterday. She said things like, first of all, she didn't even say Trump's name once. She also suggested that the federal government should have a role to play in the abortion decision, while she skirted sort of a national abortion ban. She didn't really answer a 6-week abortion ban. So she, this is I think a sign that perhaps Nikki Haley is going to take federal action if she gets elected president. She also believes that we shouldn't have gun-free zones in schools. She wants to reform Social Security and Medicare. She said entitlement reform is on the table, and that it would hurt, and that she acknowledges it would hurt. So she wants to reform those key programs that keep all of us kind of up afloat. And she also treated wokeness as something that will destroy our country. She was asked by Jake Tapper to define the word woke, and basically she couldn't do it. She was saying that, it's something that the minority imposes on the majority of people, and that, these people are out to get us. You have biological, women playing in men's sports. And it's just all of these kind of talking points from Republicans, again, basically reiterating this woke ideology. And I said this the other day on MSNBC. It's like, who are these people listening to? Who are the people who they're actually kind of paying attention and on the ground and kind of talking to? Because it seems like every Republican election, or every single Republican campaign right now, is driven so much by what we're seeing on Twitter, what we're seeing on YouTube, what we're seeing on Fox News and far right news sources. No one is talking about things like wokeness these days, and it's just so embarrassing for all of these Republican candidates to focus on all of the wrong issues. And then yesterday, also, you have someone else running for the Republican primary. His name is Vivek Ramaswamy. I might be saying that wrong, but Vivek Ramaswamy was on ABC this week, and he basically said, Ukraine isn't a big issue. He was saying, that there should be a nationwide ban on abortion. He said that we shouldn't be focusing on Ukraine, that there are much more pressing foreign issues. And it's just, again, this Republican Party that, even when you see people like Vivek and Nikki Haley, Tim Scott, go down the line. Oh, I think we have DNC Chair. Hi there.
Hey, Victor. How are you, my friend?
How are you? I was just talking about the CNN town hall with Nikki Haley and just the line of Republican primary people who are running so far. And I want to ask you about that because you tweeted a great tweet yesterday, basically about how Nikki Haley and other MAGA candidates are basically kind of hiding in the flesh and that they're all MAGA candidates. And I'm wondering if you can talk about that more and how we should view someone like Nikki Haley, because there's, I guess, so much to talk about with her.
Well, listen, I it wasn't the fortune. Nikki Haley was my governor,
Yes.
and so when I was the chair of the South Carolina Democratic Party, she was the governor during the time, and so Nikki Haley is a disaster. This is a person who her core value is ambition. She just wants to be important. She wants to be somebody, and it doesn't matter who is in front of her. She will run them over in order to achieve that. This is a woman who, even though last night she was trying to moderate where she was on abortion, but Nikki Haley supported and still supports a national abortion ban, and she can't hide from it. This is a woman who was hell-bent on not expanding Medicaid in South Carolina, not because Medicaid was going to break the bank, not because it was a bad thing. It is because it was an initiative under Barack Obama. And so she didn't want to have him to have that achievement. And as a result, we've had a number of our rural hospitals in South Carolina close because they don't have the resources that a Medicaid expansion would allow. So, she doesn't do what's in the best interest of the people. She does what's in the best interest of Nikki Haley. And she will be just as extreme as Ron DeSantis, as Donald Trump. This was the same person who said that Donald Trump was everything you taught your kids not to be during the primary, and then she decided to go work for him, right? It shows that she has no core convictions, and she will do and she will say whatever in order to get to a certain place, and that's a dangerous person.
Absolutely.
And we can't have her in anywhere near the White House.
I mean, it's her, it's Tim Scott, it's all of these Republicans who are presenting themselves as more competent and capable. But when you look at their policies, and just like you mentioned, I mean, they are basically the same as what Trump and DeSantis would do. And I'm wondering, with any of these, I guess, quote unquote, traditional Republicans in the ring, do any of them actually have real policies at this point? Is this the Republican Party that existed 10, 15 years ago?
No, and they don't have any real policies. Remember, just in 2020, the RNC didn't even pass a platform.
Yeah.
Right? Never in the history of party politics have either one of the major parties gone through an election cycle and not passed a platform of where they are, what they stand for, what they believe in, what their core values are. And that's where the RNC was in 2020. They didn't pass a platform. And many of the issues that you see, many of the things that the folks are talking about on the Republican side, they're rooted in division. They're rooted in not how we improve the economy, how we get more jobs for the American people, how do we improve the quality of life of the American people. They don't care about those things. It's about division. How can we separate the American people? How can we make you fear certain demographics or certain groups? I mean, what they're doing right now to the LGBTQ community is just it's an abomination. It's horrible. The things that we're seeing Vivek say about young people right now, it's horrible. Yeah. And again, they're not talking about substance. They're talking about dividing or ostracizing a certain group within our society. And we can't stand for that, because an attack on one is an attack on all. And we all have to be together, arm in arm, to push back against the division and the hatred that we see coming out of the Republican Party these days.
I mean, it is just, like you said, just all based off of fear, and it is just not a winning strategy. I think it's something else that's really befuddling to me as I look at kind of the Republican primary, and I'm wondering if you have, if you agree, is that they all seem to be stuck in 2016, which is that they don't want to attack the front runner, who is obviously Trump, but they still think that they can win if they don't do that. I'm wondering if you think that there is any chance for anyone else to win if they don't take on Trump directly, and even if they do that, is there any viable path for any of the Republican candidates who are running or thinking about running?
it's all the same shades of gray, right?
Yeah.
They can't differentiate themselves from Donald Trump because they agree with everything that Donald Trump says. And if you agree with everything that Donald Trump says, and then there's no way that you're going to paint a difference from him.
Yeah.
And I mean, Nikki Haley, I think she didn't go that entire town hall. It was, I think it was like 30 or 40 minutes before she said something that was different than Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Tim Scott to this day has still not said anything that he is different from Donald Trump on. Mike Pence won't even say Donald Trump's name, right? He can't even bring himself to say Trump's name. And so, again, all of these folks are extreme. All of them are awful for America. And that's why we need Joe Biden and Kamala Harris again.
Yes.
Because this president has provided this nation strong and steady leadership in these last few years. He has gotten more done in the first 2 years than any president of my lifetime. I'm 47 years old, and I cannot tell you a president that has gotten as much done for the American people as Joe Biden has. When you look at the amount of jobs that have been created, the lowest unemployment in the last 50 years, how he has diversified our judiciary. Now, this president has made our judiciary younger and more diverse, more so than any other president ever. And I can go down the line. I mean, where he has been on climate change in terms of the investment there with the Inflation Reduction Act, what he's done on healthcare. I mean, issue after issue after issue, this president has moved the ball forward. Now, do we want to go further? Yes. But in order to go further, we need more help. We need more help in the House. We need more help in the United States Senate. And if we get this president more help, just imagine what more he can do to transform this country for the better.
No, it's so just I want to live in that world so badly. And I want to ask you about that because Democrats have been now, I think, more united than ever before. We saw it last week with the debt limit bill. We're seeing it again kind of in the House and the Senate and also across the country. And I think you're really seeing this party that is just more united and passionate than ever before. And I'm wondering kind of what is the strategy you think President Biden and Democrats should take ahead of 2024, at least on the national level, because, especially what happened last week with things like the economy, how should, I guess, President Biden and Democrats talk about those issues that have traditionally belonged to Republicans, like freedom, economy, I mean, all of those issues, and how can Democrats kind of reclaim those?
Well, I think folks need to understand this. Listen, it is because of the president's wisdom and his experience that we've gotten to the point where we are now. We were on the edge of a default. But because of his wisdom and experience, we were able to negotiate a deal that protect the key priorities of this administration and the historic accomplishments that we've made. And so we need to go out and talk about that. Think about what Kevin McCarthy and the Republicans wanted to do. They wanted to dump the Inflation Reduction Act. Think of all of the investments in terms of clean energy and climate change and healthcare. They wanted to dump all that. They wanted to totally gut everything in terms of the good things that we were able to do during the midst of COVID in terms of the COVID funding. But this agreement protects the key priorities and accomplishments from the past 2 years, including those investments that we made in terms of in creating good jobs across the country. You remember the president he was so masterful in the State of the Union.
Yes.
Because he knew that all of this was coming down the pike, and they wanted to gut Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. And he basically said, this is what you want to do. And they said, oh, no, all of the clutching of the pearls. I was in the chamber that night, and they were like, you lie, and all those other crazy things. And he masterfully got them to take that off the table because he knew that we were going to eventually get to this point. And so this program, listen, it is a compromise, and we're not going to spin it. It is a compromise. It is not ideally what we would want if we had complete control of this government, but we don't. But given the fact that we are in a split government right now, I mean, I don't think we could have gotten any better. And it was because of the president's wisdom and experience that allowed us to do this. But I think the next part that we have to do, Victor, is now we're over this crisis, don't have to worry about it for the next 2 years, can now focus on getting the message out about the president's agenda, what we accomplish, and what do we want to accomplish? And how have Republicans stood in the way in terms of those accomplishments? How have they stood in the way of us helping hardworking families and students and our veterans? How have they ostracized and attacked the most vulnerable in our society? And so that has to be what we do and engage in over the next two years.
Yeah.
It has to be a strong message. We have to have a lot of diverse messengers. It's not just coming from the president and the vice president, but from folks like you, Victor, who are out there talking about what our country can be. Because we believe as Democrats that our better days are ahead of us, not behind us, but ahead of us. And so we need all of that diversity, all of what we are as a nation, to stand up and to speak out about what we want, where we want to go, and who we want to take us there.
And boy, is that different from what we're seeing from Republicans. It's actually a message of hope and possibility, unlike Republicans. And by the way, I think you hit the nail on the head. For anyone who is kind of disappointed by this compromise, I mean, that's just yet another, I think, reminder of why 2024 is so important. If we can expand the House, expand the Senate, hopefully too, we can get so much more done, and we can protect the programs that maybe have been compromised in this debt ceiling bill. But I quickly want to ask you about beyond the federal level, because Democrats had such a strong showing this year in Wisconsin, other local elections. We saw it in Florida too. We saw so much turnout among young people and overwhelming support for Democrats. What does that tell you about where the Democratic Party is heading on the local and state level in 2024?
Well, when you think about our achievements in the midterm, and listen, I am so proud. I'm so proud of young folks because they really were the difference makers in the midterm elections. There is no red wave. There was no red wave because we had the second highest turnout of young voters in the last 30 years in a midterm. It was, when you look at a place look at the University of Michigan, and I think you tweeted out about this, and the turnout in the University of Michigan during that election. And as a result, and this is the thing that I've been preaching about for a long time, even as a young person, when young people stand up in this country and have their voices be heard and exercise the power that they have, change happens. And in Michigan, we now have a trifecta. We have a Democratic governor, Democratic House, Democratic Senate, and therefore they've been passing transformational legislation in Michigan as a result of that. And that is a showcase. If young people don't know anything else, if they want to see an example of what their power can do, just take a look at what Michigan has been able to accomplish. Look at what we are doing in Pennsylvania, what Ben Wickler and the team has been doing in Wisconsin, how we have transformed Arizona. I spent some time on the campus of Arizona State University during the midterm election, and I can tell you, those young people were fired up. And as a result, they beat back Kari Lake, which everybody thought that Kari was probably going to win, right? But they beat back Kari Lake. They got Mark Kelly elected again. They got all of the statewide officials in Arizona. And now we got to go back and get some of those congressional races in Arizona this cycle. And so this is really about having people see that they have power and that we can't take any time off. To save democracy, to have democracy be vibrant, that means you have to constantly, it's like a plant. You have to constantly water it. You have to constantly fertilize it. You have to constantly take care of it. You can't take any time off, because if you do, the leaves start to wilter and then eventually it starts to die. And we can't allow that to happen. So people say, no, the answer isn't vote harder. Yes, we got to vote harder, and we got to get more people to vote, because that is how we get the change that we want. And that's how we stop the Republicans from changing our laws, packing the judiciary with these right-wing zealots, and put the people who believe in freedom in the places that they need to be. And so young people have led that change since the inception of this great nation. I mean, you think about it. Thomas Jefferson was 20-something years old when he wrote the Declaration of Independence, right? Martin Luther King was in his 30s when he led all of these marches and these transformations and these changes. And so even in terms of war, like, young people have been they've been the impetus in terms of moving this country forward. And I believe in this era of change right now, young people will once again be the engine for that, the transformation for that, to beat back against this attempts to erode and to kill American democracy, and we can't allow it to happen.
I couldn't have said it any better. I agree with you 100%. And, the one question I get, and maybe we can end on this, is, what is the best way for kind of people to get involved? People who look at kind of what's happening right now, people who want to make a difference as the leader of the Democratic Party. What is the best thing that people listening to this, people out there can do to make sure that we take back control of the House, keep the Senate, elect President Biden again, but also win elections down ballot? Where do we kind of take all of this?
Victor, I want to share a little bit in terms of my personal story, and hopefully folks will understand this. So when I was 16 years old, nobody in my family had ever been involved in politics. My grandfather had a 4th grade education. My grandmother had an 8th grade education. I was the first in my family to go to college. And I was blessed and fortunate. I got an opportunity to go to Yale. But in high school, I met somebody at the county fair who was with the Young Democrats. Oh. And they said that they were volunteering and they were going to do voter registration. And they asked me if I wanted to do it. I was like, well, that would be cool. I get a free ticket to go to the fair and I can sit there and get people registered. Yeah, I'll do it. And so from that moment, I really got the bug. I started volunteering more on local campaigns. I started trying to figure out how the state party and the county party operated. I became a delegate or tried to become a delegate to the convention, to the state convention, and then to the national convention. Yeah. I got internships in the United States Senate with my senator then, Fritz Hollings. And then I got the Congressional Black Caucus internship with Jim Clyburn. And you start to build on that. And what I tell folks is all the time, local parties, your county, your state party desperately need your help. These parties can only be as good as the people who make them up. And if you aren't there, if the young people aren't there, if other people who are interested in politics aren't there, then they are missing a key component. So if you want them to reach out to you, if you want them to reach out to your demographic, then you need to be involved so you can teach them how to reach out to you and your demographic in the best way possible. So get involved on a local level. One of the big things that is coming up, if you have always thought about the national conventions and you want to go, the DNC sets aside a certain number of spots. We ask all of our state parties to make sure that they come up with affirmative action plans to make sure that their delegations are reflective of the Democratic Party in their states. So that means that they need to have a certain number of young people. They need to make sure that they have diverse people from the AAPI community, the Native American community, the LGBTQ community. I can go on and on and on. All of that has to be a part of the delegation that they send to the National Convention. So if you're a young person listening to me right now and you want to be involved in that process, now is the time. Reach out to your state party. Say, listen, I want to volunteer. I want to learn more. I want to understand how this stuff operates. Folks, there aren't a lot of, I know people think there are a lot of people pulling strings and there's smoky decisions happening in a smoky room. Well, if you think that, then hell, you need to get there and get inside that smoky room. I tell you, there aren't any smoky rooms anymore. There's just a lot of people who are volunteering and trying to do the best that they can be, and they need more help. They need you. So sign up, get involved, make sure that you are part of it. I wrote a book called Climbing the Hill, How to Build a Career in Politics and Make a Difference. Go to your local library. If you want to figure out how to get involved now, it is a great blueprint from somebody who didn't know how to get involved and had to just figure it out on my own. But I lay out a blueprint on how you can get involved so that you can be a part of this process. And you're not somebody standing on the sidelines saying, well, I wish people would do this. One of the things I learned from Jim Clyburn, and I'll tell you this, Victor, and I know you got to go on your show. Clyburn tells this amazing story that when he was a young boy, he and his dad were driving along on a dirt road on a pickup truck. And there was a tree branch that landed right in front of, right across the road. And so Clyburn turns to his dad. He said, Daddy, I don't know why somebody just doesn't go and move that tree branch. And his dad stopped and he said, son, aren't you somebody? And Clyburn and his dad got out of the truck, moved the tree branch, and moved along. And he said that lesson has stayed with him his entire life, that instead of waiting for somebody else to do it for us, we can do it for ourselves. We can get involved for ourselves. And that's what I decided to do when I was a young kid. And I hope so many other young people decide to do that as well. This is your country. And you got to stand up, and you got to have your voice be heard, and you have to take control. If you want something done, start moving to get it done. If you see it's not getting done by other folks, let them know what you want. And it's really, really important. But I'm jazzed up. I'm excited for this election because it's so important. But I'm so grateful, Victor, to you and so many other young folks for standing up, having your voice be heard, and fighting like hell to save this democracy.
Well, thank you, Jamie. And I have to say, I love that story. I didn't know that story of your how you got involved in politics. And I have to say, I mean, the kind of role and responsibility and just importance that those around us have is so critical. I got involved in politics because my 8th grade teacher spent a classroom talking about the political spectrum, and then that's kind of made me just interested in this whole political process. I got involved on the local and state level, and those levels I think really matter in terms of showing young people that it's possible to make change beyond the federal level. And I think that's so important. But it takes just one person, one conversation to really get someone interested in thinking about politics. So I'm grateful for whoever that person at the state fair was, and I'm grateful for all that you do, Jamie, to help unite our party and really get people out there and voting. It's so important.
Thank you, my friend. You take care of yourself. Looking forward to working with you this cycle.
Yes. Likewise. Thanks so much, Jamie.
Bye-bye.
Well, Jamie's always an important voice, especially in this Democratic fight to really save democracy and turn out and get Democrats elected up and down the ballot. So thank you to DNC Chair Jamie Harrison for joining me this morning. I know we're running a little bit over time. I talked about some of the news of the day at the beginning, so I'll skip that right now. But just a quick programming note: we'll be back every day this week at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern, right here on either youtube.com/Politicon or on your Twitter feed. So be sure to like and subscribe or retweet so other people can see this episode. Just a quick teaser of some of the guests that we have in store for you. Tomorrow, we're going to have on Anderson Clayton. If you haven't heard of her, pay attention. She is the first Gen Z state lead of any Democratic Party in North Carolina. So pay attention to her. We're going to talk about just the power of Gen Zers leading state parties and kind of what her role is in North Carolina, how red states can really flip blue. So tomorrow will be Anderson Clayton. She'll be a very interesting and fascinating guest. On Wednesday, we're going to have on Ro Khanna to talk about all of things happening in this House, the debt ceiling vote, everything that's happening with Republicans, how we push back against them. It'll be an exciting episode with Ro Khanna. On Thursday, we're going to have on Doug Jones to talk about what's happening in the South in states like Alabama, voting rights, gerrymandering. All of those issues are so important because Doug Jones is on the front lines and really making a difference. So Doug Jones will join me on Thursday. He was also a former senator. And then on Friday, we might do a kind of a Q&A session. So if you have any questions, submit them my way. We will be sure to answer them, or as many as we can on Friday. But those are some of the people that we have in store for you this week. It'll be an exciting week, and boy, will there be news. We have Trump indictment watch. We have Chris Christie and Mike Pence possibly throwing their name in the ring this week. So lots of news to talk about, and we will be here, and I will be here along the way to guide you through it with some fabulous guests. So join me every day again at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern, right here on youtube.com/Politicon or on Twitter. Thank you all for watching and have a great rest of your Monday. I will see you tomorrow.